You're listening to the Self-Made is a Myth, Make a Difference Together show with your host, Coach Tim Campsall, where we talk with successful business owners to hear the stories of their journeys in building their successful businesses. And more importantly, we recognize the folks who help them excel because we know that achieving business success is not something we can do on our own.
Hello, everyone. This is Coach Tim Campsall, and I'm excited to have a fellow business owner from Indiana with us today. Something unique about my guest is he has a diverse background in business and athletics. We'll get him to explain that to us here in a minute. In his downtime, he enjoys spending time with family, as well as reading and playing basketball and tennis. And he's most proud of his family and the impact that he's had on the players that he's coached. It is my pleasure to welcome Matt to the show today. Hi, Matt.
Tim, great to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Well, hey, I'd love to have you start by introducing yourself, give us your full name, and tell us a little of your personal story, like where you were born, live, and about your family.
Sure, we can do it. So my name is Matt Hunsberger, born and raised in the northern Indiana area, still reside there to this day. Married for the last 24 years, 6 kids. Wife and I are happily married with 6 kids. Grew up in a semi-large family. There was 5 of us siblings, so I had 2 brothers, 2 sisters, and blue collar parents, work hard, believed God for everything, and that's a little bit about me. Yeah.
Tell us about the business and athletics.
Yeah, so I've always kind of had an entrepreneurial spirit, I guess you would say. And started out coaching about 24 years ago, actually, coaching girls high school basketball, and did that for about 7 seasons. Then I got into college coaching, started the women's program at Holy Cross College in South Bend, Indiana, right over by Notre Dame. And it was during that time of coaching Holy Cross that a student kicked a soccer ball, broke a sprinkler head, ruined a hardwood floor, and in that moment I believe God gave me an idea for a sprinkler head guard, and so that was really the birth of SprinkGUARD. And I've been doing that since 2009. So
fantastic. Hey, Matt, is there a funny story that your family likes to tell about you that you'd be willing to share with us today?
Yeah, there's probably a lot of them if you ask them. A lot of funny stories. But one that comes to my mind would be one that my players and my family like to talk about. I was maybe my 3rd year into coaching. I was coaching girls high school basketball at varsity level, and I'm an intense guy. I'm up and down the sidelines. I'm talking to the players, and it was probably a heated game, and I was just so into the game. I'm up and down the sideline. I go to sit down on the bench at the end, and I missed the bench. I fell into the stands, so where you can walk up in the stands. So, the next day in film session, everybody had a good laugh with that one. And to this day, 23 years later, I still have players from that team that remind me of that when I see it.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
Well, Matt, tell us a little bit more about the business. So how did it come about? And at what point did you have the confidence that you could run your own business?
Yeah, so it was my first year at coaching at Holy Cross. So that's 2008 and 2009 season. I was recruiting a brand new team to the university there, and with that soccer ball being kicked, I mean, it was one of those things, right place, right time. I believe God put me there for that because I've been doing it the last 16 years. But when that head broke and ruined the floor, obviously there was a big need there for my employer. And I said, hey, to my athletic director, I said, I've got an idea I think could work for you here. And he said, you're kidding me. And I said, no, because I was a plumber. I went right out of high school into the trades. So I was a plumber for about 5 years. So I had that in my background, and my dad was a mechanic. So I was good at envisioning and working with things in my hands. And so, I ended up getting him a print, and he's like, present it to the fire chief and to the architects, engineers. Everybody's like, we think this could work. And, that kind of started that, and then went on to the patent process, and really, put that down for a couple of years. After I did that first job, we secured the patents for the product, but I continued to coach. I thought I was going to be at Holy Cross for 20 years,
Yeah.
But, God had different plans. And after my 3rd year, I stepped away to pursue SprinkGUARD full time. And, I do other things like public speaking and coaching and mentoring, but that's really my full-time role as CEO at SprinkGUARD currently.
Yeah. And what gave you that confidence that you could go out on your own?
I think, my parents were blue collar. I mean, my dad was a mechanic. My mom was a daycare provider. They ran their own businesses, so they had an entrepreneurial spirit. So I think that was kind of always in me. My parents, they expected me to work hard. My dad didn't want me cutting corners. He was tough on us, but he loved us. And I think, that instilled a confidence in me at a young age, that you can do all things through Christ, right? I mean, that scripture. So I think it was my faith in God, and I think it was just the belief that I had in myself that came from my parents. And yeah, so yeah, it was scary. I mean, it was scary to step out and to work on something that had never really existed before, but God's always faithful.
Yeah. Wow. Praise God. That's awesome. Tell
Yeah.
us a little bit more about the company. What's the name? What do you guys do? How do you help people?
Yeah, so company name is SprinkGUARD, like sprinkler, but SprinkGUARD, and we sell industrial strength sprinkler head guards for fire suppression systems, and we sell domestically, obviously, but we're all over the world too. Germany and Australia, Canada, Mexico, doing a lot of industrial like warehousing.
Mm.
So take COVID for example, there was a big need for people like Amazon and others that were shipping and receiving during that time. People not able to get out to the stores, so they had to ship to the house. So we service that industry. We do a lot of athletic facilities. Obviously, that's where the business started.
Yeah.
We do, a lot of retail, and we do on the East and West Coast. We do some residential as well. So really, just helping replace the former guards, what we jokingly call a bird cage. It's just a little wire basket about the size of a tennis ball, and it bolts directly to the sprinkler head. And the difference is our guards, they bolt directly to the system. So now it's a lot more secure. And within our designs, we've designed it in a way that if the guards were to get hit by, say, a basketball or a football, or even a pallet full of product, it's going to stop and it'll lock out before it rotates all the way around. So it protects that sprinkler head from really they're more times than not, it's just an inadvertent activation. Something fluke happens, but a lot of people tell me, oh, that's a 1 in a million shot. And after I got into this business a while, I'm like, if you're on my side of the desk, it's not a 1 in a million. It actually happens more than you realize.
Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow. Very cool. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
Um, Hey, Matt, I'd like to have you tell me a story where someone pushed you or inspired you that you could do it, even though maybe you didn't know that you could, and the impact that that person had.
Yeah. I've I've been in business for over 20 plus years. I mean, I had my own maintenance company and I did landscaping and stuff. So I've had a lot of people in my life do that. The first that would come to my mind would be my dad, who's passed on. He's in heaven. My mom is as well. And I can remember my dad telling me a story one time. I had this big account doing landscaping, and I was young. I was a young 20 something, and I could have put forth a better effort, not in my service to my customer, but really pushing for more business with other people. And he said one time, he said, I really think you really applied yourself to that. You really could have made that go. And this was years after that business. I was done with that business. And I thought, in today's world, people would say, boy, that's kind of harsh. But my dad loved me enough to tell me the truth.
Yeah.
And so, that was one example. The other one I give is in 2018, I was ready to give up with SprinkGUARD. I mean, my business partner and we had been working it for 9 years, and it felt like we just weren't getting over the hump.
Mm.
And I sat down with a really good friend of mine, and he's a basketball player. I play with him. He's older than me. His name's Pat. He's probably 12 to 13 years older than me, so he's a mentor as well. And I told him where I was at, and it was winter and it was cold, and I was just ready to give up and go get a job. I've got a wife and 3 kids. And Pat sat there with me and he said, listen, he said, you've got something special. And if you'll just stick with this and you
Mhm.
keep your belief in God, he says, I think and it was crazy. It was less than a year later that things started to explode. And this is one piece of advice I'd give to people, Tim. When you're ready to give up or you feel like you've exhausted yourself to the point of no return, push a little further.
Yes.
You're right on the cusp of the breakthrough. And
Yeah.
in 2019, 2020, even with COVID, our business started trending upwards
Yeah.
in my moment where I was ready to give up.
Yeah.
So
It's
those are two
so
stories.
true that it reminds me of a cartoon where this person's digging underground to get jewels, and he gives up, walks away, and he was one more pick away from,
Yes. Yep.
finding the diamonds. But
Yep.
it's so true that if we're just a little bit more persistent and stay at it, the breakthrough is just on the other side. We call that moment of the emotional give up, perturbation, where it feels too hard, and right, we're outside of our comfort zone, and we're not
Yep.
certain that we're going to get to where we want to be, and,
Yeah.
and it's sometimes just easier to quit on ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And I always tell my players this, and I tell my kids this too. It's like, practice is supposed to be the hardest thing we do, and game time should be easy. And so that's why I push you because you always got a little more.
Hmm.
Think so or not, you always have a little more. It's just maybe that last bit that gets you over the hump.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for sharing. That's a great story. What's been your biggest learning as a business owner over the multiple years?
Man, there's been a lot of learning, obviously. Anytime you're in business, you're learning things from patents and how to work with attorneys. And in our industry with fire protection, it's a very highly, we're saving lives and we're saving property,
Mm.
right? So there's a lot of testing that goes into. So I think for me, the thing I've learned the most is patience.
Mm.
Um, I've always been one to say, you know what, I'm honest with you. I'll tell you if I don't know something, I don't know it, but I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Well, I can learn, and I'm always teachable. So I would say the biggest thing that I've learned in business is not all the business things, it's the internal things of just me being patient and staying teachable. So
Yeah, patience. It's an interesting word, isn't it? Because in business, right, we think that we're supposed to be, always on and always pushing forward and always going for the sale, but that's not always the reality in terms of what's most effective and most efficient.
yeah, there's a balance to it, right? I mean, we all should be out there getting after it and grinding, but there are those times where we need to slow down and we just need to listen. We need to be patient. We need to, yeah. So,
I read a book. It's called Peaks and Valleys, and it talks about the fact that when you're on the peak of the first mountain and you want to get to the second mountain, the only way to get there is to go down, right?
mm,
And and at the bottom, slow down and recharge and rejuvenate and repack and get ready to scale the next mountain. And so,
yep, yep. And it is that, I mean, and that's what you have to prepare yourself for if you step out beyond the normal 40 hours a week, right? You have to be prepared for these things to happen, but you got to be able to ride them out. So it always pays off.
it does. It's very into you've mentioned God, and so it's I love the idea that God always provides, and so when we're in that down slope, right, it can feel like a lot bigger issue than it really is, and being able to look backwards and go, okay, well, God's always provided, He's always showed up, the money's always been there, this
Yep.
too will pass, right?
Yep. Yeah, that's, and with that patience, Tim, it's having patience in the dream.
Mhm.
Everyone has been created for a purpose. Every person from the beginning of time till today, everybody has a purpose,
Yeah,
and it's knowing that purpose and staying patient, right? So, yeah,
yeah.
God's good.
Yeah, amen. We know that business success doesn't happen in isolation. So, Matt, tell us about one of your biggest challenges throughout the years and someone who came alongside you and helped you through it.
Yeah, I mean that's another really good question because there's a lot of people that come to my mind when I think of that have come alongside. I mean, obviously my wife is a big one, my business partner Troy, those two being right there with me, helping me, build up this business. Those are two that come to mind that help me push through.
Yeah.
Um, what was the second part of your question there, Tim? I was
Just yeah, no, you're fine. So, share if you can think of a specific example of a challenge that came up
yeah.
that they helped you through.
Yeah, so it's negotiations is what comes to my mind, because when we're negotiating and we're selling to some high level people, some companies I can't name contractually, but everybody knows them, right? I mean, they're servicing the world, and they have all these facilities all over the world, and they have a lot of forks, a lot of pallets, and a lot of potential to break head. But I would say, their support in negotiating and being prayerful with me, and
Mm,
and helping me. I always want to stay balanced and make sure that I'm not, ruling with an iron fist or I'm being too weak, right? And I think they help balance me in that. And so, yeah, I would say in some of these higher level negotiations, their ability to pray things out with me and to be a sounding board and to give me their honest advice, not just being a yes man or a yes
yeah.
woman, giving me their true advice. Hey, you know what? You need to back up a little bit here. They're not afraid to tell me the truth.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've in my seminars I talk about the fact that we need that person to call us out on our stuff and that I've been blessed that my wife has no issue in letting me know when I'm when I'm doing
Yeah.
things the wrong
Yeah.
way.
Yeah, but I'm so grateful for that as you are too. I'm sure having that balance here. And the other person, real quick, I need to mention is my best friend since kindergarten, Scott. I mean, he's one of those guys too that he'll say, Hunsberger, you're wrong. No, you're wrong, or he'll say you're right on. And I appreciate that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I'm gonna put you on the spot here a little bit and ask you to pick three people throughout your business owner journey that you're most grateful for them being there help with your business growth. And it may be some of the folks you already mentioned. That's okay. But who are they, and specifically, how have they helped you?
Yeah, so I mean they are. I mean there's a list. I mean it starts with my parents. My dad, my mom would tell me, look, we're praying for your business. We're praying for you. We want you to succeed, and that really helped carry me through. Especially now that they're gone. I can sense their prayers, and we're starting to taste some of the things that they were dreaming for us. So definitely my parents, my wife for sure, just always being there to be real with me, to support me when I was up here and when I was down here, right?
Yes. What's
So
your wife's name?
Megan. Yep, my
Megan.
wife's name is Megan. Yep. So she's amazing. She's a blessing. I mean, we homeschool, so she's not only a mother of six and well seven with me, right? But but just her support and her faith in the Lord, and just being a person that I can trust her voice. And then Troy and Scott. I mean, again, I mentioned them, but just being my best friends. And not just my best friends, but guys that are willing to tell me the hard things or just be straight up and honest with me.
Yeah.
And I trust their voices. So been plenty of opportunities in the 40 years I've been friends with Scott, and actually Troy is my older brother's best friend, so he's been a brother to me my whole life too. So yeah, those four different relationships there, I think, are the ones that would come to mind.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
It's so important to, you've mentioned it a few times, but to have that support network, and
Mm.
right, somebody who's going to go through the ups and downs with us, and help remind us to keep our eye on the prize, right? And not give
Yep.
up on ourselves.
Yeah, they help us stay focused. I mean, I know for me, I'm a big picture guy. I'm a big dreamer. So Troy jokes with me, you throw it up on the wall and tell everybody to decipher it for you.
Yeah.
Sometimes I can go squirrel on things because I've got all these things that I'm wanting to do. But having people like that to bring you back into focus and help you remember what is our focus here? What are we after here? And so, yeah, and then just speaking truth. I mean, people don't speak truth anymore. I mean, most of the time people will tell you just what they think you want to hear because
Sure.
they're really looking for something for themselves. And just have people that are not worried about hurting your feelings, but that'll love you enough to tell you the truth.
Yeah. That big picture thinking, does this resonate? What I've found is the visionary people, they'll see things as one or two steps when really there's like 100 steps. So when you ask somebody to do something, right, sometimes it can be, well, hold on, wait a minute, like that, there's so much in what he just asked.
Yeah, yeah, 100%, absolutely. And that's how my brain works. And that's why I love having people like my team and everybody around me because, like, well, this isn't just one big step here. We got about 15 things we got to do to get there.
Uh-huh.
And that's the beauty of having people around you. I think that's why I love sports so much.
Mm,
You got golf and you got tennis where, unless you're playing doubles in tennis, you're by yourself, but you get into football and baseball and basketball and these other soccer sports, you're relying on others.
mm.
I do something well, but they also do something well, and we complement one another. So I think that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, the way I like describing this to people is, the big picture thinker needs somebody to help them land the plane.
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. We get the big bird in the sky, but help me get it back on the ground,
Yeah.
right? Hmm.
Matt, you think about the next couple of years, what's your number one priority, or the biggest challenge that you'll need to overcome in order to achieve your goals?
Yeah, I think specifically to SprinkGUARD, it continues to be an exposure issue
Mm.
for us. I mean, we're still, even 15 years in, we're relatively unknown to the worldwide market. So I think for SprinkGUARD, it's to continue to create exposure and education for people. Because,
Mm.
how many times did I walk into a building and I didn't think about sprinkler heads
Right,
ever until
right.
one broke? So that's the big thing for SprinkGUARD. I think for me personally, I know there's a mandate on my life. Like I said earlier, everybody has a mandate or a calling God has placed upon their life. And I think for me personally, it's just to continue to develop myself and to be better because, I really have a heart to give back and to see other people achieve their dreams, and not even just achieve, but to realize. I mean, how many people live their life, they live and die, and they never realize what they're called to do in
Yeah,
life. And so
yeah,
I think those would be the two things, business and then personally.
wonderful. Last question here,
Sure.
Matt. Jim Rohn, an awesome business guru. One of his quotes was, "We become the average of the five people that we spend the most time with." So, as you think about that quote, what advice would you have for business owners who are trying to do it on their own?
I would say, exactly what Jim said there. And I heard Ed Milet say the same thing and not too long ago on a podcast talking about your circle,
Mm,
right? Surround yourself with people, number one, that are going to tell you truth. They're gonna give you the absolute truth. And then, surround yourself and attach yourself to people that are doing what you dream or want to do.
Mhm.
Watch them, study them, learn from them. And, that's the advice I would give, because I think, too many times, myself included, I'm kind of a lone ranger, like I can get this done. And I think for a few years there in the beginning, I did that, and I realized, like, I can't do this. And God always talks to me in coaching terms, because I'm a coach.
Yeah,
But, I think about this, like, as a head coach, I'm only as good as my assistants and my players.
right.
Nick Saban's probably the greatest football coach of all time, but Nick Saban says all the time, it's because I got the best players.
Yeah.
And so I would say that to anyone aspiring to be in business or anything like that, to surround yourself with the right people, get the right people on the bus, and then find those people that are doing what you want to do and that they're doing it well, right? Dave Ramsey talks about financial advice, right? He's like, no one goes to a fat person and asks them how to be skinny, right? So you want to find somebody that's doing it well, and
Yes.
and draw from them.
I think it's Rich Dad Poor Dad. I was reading it the other day, and he talked about the fact that a financial planner was asking to have his portfolio, to show him his portfolio, and he's like, "Let me see yours first,
Yeah.
because I want to see that you're successful with your portfolio before I give you mine."
Exactly. 100%. Yep. That's funny.
Hey, Matt, it sounds like you've been blessed with some incredible people who have been part of your journey and helped you along the way. If they were all here on the show today, what would you want to say to them?
Gosh, I get emotional when you say that. Just thank you, thank you. And that, it just doesn't encapsulate my feelings for them, but thanks for loving me, because they do what they do because they love me. So,
I love it. Thank you so much for
yeah.
being real with us. I appreciate the candor and the emotion. And you mentioned it at the beginning. Business ownership can be a tough gig and right, and a little bit of a roller coaster. And
Yeah.
we don't have those people in our corner. It's a lot harder.
Yes. Yes, it is. Yep.
Awesome, Matt. It's been a pleasure speaking with you today. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Tim, it's wonderful. I appreciate it. Thanks for the opportunity, and it's good to get to know you.
Thanks for listening to the Self-Made is a Myth show. Please help spread this movement by liking and subscribing to our show and following us on Facebook and LinkedIn. To join our movement, go to bemadtogether.com. Okay, folks, that's a wrap. Please pay it forward and be sure to tune in next time to the Self-Made is a Myth podcast.